The journey to the planet Vera had taken weeks. Arun sat quietly in the corner of the shuttle as it descended through the thick silver clouds of the alien world. He was not an officer, not a diplomat, not even a soldier. He was a mechanic, brought along to maintain the machines and keep the small human ship running in case of trouble. He had no plan to be noticed, and he was certain that no one on this mission would even remember his name. The shuttle touched down on a platform made of black stone. Strange glowing patterns moved across its surface, like water flowing through hidden rivers. Arun followed the rest of the human team as they stepped out, blinking at the brightness of the alien sun. Around them stood towering figures, their armor glimmering with blue and gold markings. These were the Vera, a proud and ancient people known across the stars for their strength. At the center of the landing field stood the queen herself. She was taller than the others, her long cloak moving in the wind, her crown set with crystals that glowed like fire. Her face was calm, but her dark eyes held a sharpness that made most of the human envoys lower their gaze. She had the presence of someone who did not need to raise her voice to command respect. The human leaders stepped forward. Their words were polite, rehearsed, heavy with formality. They offered greetings, gifts, and promises of peaceful trade. Arun stayed at the back, trying not to draw attention. His mind wandered as he looked around. The air smelled different here, sweet and sharp at the same time. The ground was covered in strange plants, their leaves long and silver, their flowers glowing faintly. One of those flowers caught his eye. It was growing just near the edge of the landing area. The petals were white, but light shimmered through them, making them look like glass touched by the sun. For some reason, the sight of it made him pause. He remembered how, back on Earth, his mother used to grow small flowers outside their home. They had no great value, no deep meaning, but they made people smile. Without thinking too much, Arun bent down, plucked the glowing flower, and held it in his hand. The human envoys were still speaking in careful tones, offering precious metals and crafted machines. But Arun, standing a little apart, felt a sudden urge. He looked at the queen, standing tall among her people, surrounded by warriors and advisors. She seemed distant, untouchable, like a star shining far above. And yet, she looked strangely alone. His heart beat faster as he took a small step forward. The guards stirred, but he did not stop. He walked until he stood before the queen. Everyone grew silent, their words cut off mid-sentence. Arun raised the flower in both hands, holding it out to her. "I found this," he said softly. His voice trembled, but he kept going. "It is simple, but beautiful. I thought you might like it." For a long moment, nothing happened. The queen stared at the small glowing flower. Her council looked shocked. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. The human envoys froze, horrified that a low-ranking crew member had broken every rule of diplomacy. But then, the queen moved. Slowly, she reached out her hands. She did not take the flower with a casual gesture, as if it were beneath her. Instead, she accepted it with both hands, lifting it carefully as though it were a treasure. Her eyes softened, and her lips curved slightly, almost into a smile. "You offer me a gift of your world?" she asked. Her voice was deep, clear, and carried easily across the field. Arun swallowed. "No, Your Majesty. It grows here, on your land. But sometimes, we forget to notice what is close to us. On my world, flowers are given as a sign of respect. So I thought, maybe you would accept it." The silence grew heavier. The council members looked outraged. The human envoy seemed ready to faint. But the queen only studied him for a while longer. Then she lifted the flower high, so all her people could see it. "No one in my empire has given me a gift like this," she said. "Not jewels, not weapons, not riches. A simple bloom, offered with open hands." She lowered her gaze back to Arun. Human, you have done what none of your leaders dared. You saw me not as a throne, but as a person. For that, I honor you." The words rippled through the gathered crowd. The guards looked at one another, unsure. The council whispered fiercely among themselves. But the queen stood firm, holding the flower as though it carried more weight than any of the treasures offered by the envoys. Arun felt his knees grow weak. He had not meant to cause a scene. He had only wanted to share a small moment of kindness. But as he stood before the Queen of the Vera, he realized something had changed. He was no longer just a mechanic standing at the edge of history. He had stepped into the center of it, though he did not yet know where this path would lead. And as the queen turned to her people, flower in hand, she declared in a strong voice, "This human has given me a gift I will not forget." The sound of her words echoed across the landing field, and Arun felt every eye upon him. His life had shifted in a single heartbeat, and nothing would ever be the same again. The air inside the great hall of the Vera Palace was heavy with silence. The walls stretched high, carved with shapes of beasts and stars, glowing with faint blue light. Arun stood near the center, still unsure why he had been brought here. Only hours earlier, he had offered a single flower to the queen. He had not expected anything more than a polite nod or, at worst, a quiet dismissal. Instead, he had been brought directly to her court, surrounded by her council and warriors. The human envoys sat on one side of the chamber, whispering in alarm. They had come to discuss trade routes, treaties, and resources. None of them understood why the queen had singled out a mechanic from the back of the group. Arun could feel their disapproval pressing down on him, but he had no choice now. He had to stand where the queen had placed him. The queen entered the hall slowly, her cloak sweeping across the polished floor. In her hands she carried the glowing flower he had given her. It had been set into a small crystal frame, as though it were already being preserved. The sight of it made Arun's heart pound. The council members rose as she walked to her throne. She did not sit right away. Instead, she turned to face her people and the human visitors. Her voice filled the hall, steady and strong. "Today," she said, "a gift was placed in my hands. Not gold, not silver, not weapons, but a flower of my own land. Offered by a human who did not fear to step forward." The council exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered in low voices. But the queen raised her hand, and silence returned. She looked directly at Arun. "You did not see me as a ruler only," she continued. "You saw me as one who can receive a gift, simple and honest. For this reason, I declare before my people that you will stand by my side. From this day, you are my chosen consort." The words struck like thunder. The hall erupted with shocked cries. The human envoys leapt to their feet, their faces pale. Arun's legs almost gave way beneath him. He had not expected anything like this. A consort? He was no leader, no hero, no noble figure. He was just a mechanic who fixed engines. The Vera Council immediately protested. One of them, an elder with silver lines across his armor, stepped forward and bowed to the queen. "My queen," he said carefully, "this cannot be. A human, untested, untrained, cannot stand as your consort. It is against our ways." The queen turned her gaze on him, sharp as a blade. "Our ways are not broken," she said. "Our ways demand strength, courage, and truth. I saw all three when this human stepped forward with no fear." Another council member argued, her voice tight with anger. "Your Majesty, this is dangerous. What message will this send to our rivals? That the Queen of Vera chooses a stranger, not one of her own." The queen lifted the flower once more. Its light shimmered across the hall. "It will send the message that I choose not for power, but for truth. Let our rivals see that strength can be found in unexpected places." Arun wanted to speak, to say this was all a mistake. He opened his mouth, but his voice failed him. What could he say? To refuse might insult her and shame the humans. To accept felt impossible, like stepping into a role far too large for him. He stood frozen, caught between fear and awe. The human envoy leader tried to step in. Your Majesty, he said with a shaky bow, we must remind you that Arun is not here as a representative of our people. He has no authority to. The Queen cut him off with a raised hand. I did not choose him for authority. I chose him for what I saw. Your words will not change what has already been decided. The envoys sat back, helpless. Arun could see the frustration on their faces, but also their fear. None of them dared to push the matter further. The Queen finally turned her gaze back to Arun. Her eyes softened, though her voice stayed firm. Human, do you understand what I have said? From this day forward, you are bound to me. Not as a prisoner, but as one I have chosen. You may walk beside me in my halls. You may speak with me as an equal. Arun's chest tightened. He wanted to say no, to explain that he was not ready. But looking at her, standing tall with the flower glowing in her hand, he realized this was not something he could refuse. The entire court watched him, waiting for his answer. He took a slow breath. I do not know if I am worthy, Your Majesty. But I will not turn away from the honor you give me. The Queen nodded once. Then it is done. The sound of her voice settled the matter. The council, though displeased, could not argue further. The human envoys exchanged worried glances, already imagining how this would change the mission. Arun was led forward, and for the first time, he stood at the Queen's side. The throne loomed behind her, the court spread out before them, and he felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him. He was not ready for this. He did not understand what it meant. But as the Queen gently placed the flower into a crystal stand beside her throne, Arun realized one truth: his life was no longer his own. Outside, the sun of Vara dipped lower, casting golden light across the palace. Inside, the future of both human and Vara people shifted on a single decision. And all of it had begun with a simple flower. The days that followed felt like a dream to Arun. One moment, he had been a quiet mechanic standing at the edge of a diplomatic mission. The next, he was walking through the grand halls of the Vara Palace, his name spoken with both wonder and disbelief. Every wall was carved with symbols of ancient victories, every doorway guarded by tall warriors in shining armor. Arun felt small in every room he entered. The Queen treated him with calm respect. She did not raise her voice, nor did she force him to act in ways he could not. She welcomed him at her side when she met with advisors and generals, though he rarely spoke. She dined in silence with him in her private chambers, sometimes asking simple questions about his home. Still, Arun felt a weight on his shoulders heavier than any machine he had ever lifted. At night, when he was given a chamber of his own, he lay awake staring at the high ceiling. He wondered why this had happened to him. Why had he been the one to step forward with that flower? Why had the Queen chosen him, of all the humans who stood before her? He thought of his shipmates, of the envoys who had trained for years to represent humanity. They were angry with him now, though they tried to hide it. He could see it in their eyes. To them, he had broken protocol, disrupted everything they had worked for. Arun doubted himself more with each passing hour. He was not a warrior. He was not clever with words. He had no knowledge of politics. What could he possibly offer a ruler who carried the fate of an empire on her shoulders? On the third day, as he walked through the palace gardens, he overheard two Vara guards speaking. They did not see him at first, hidden among the tall glowing plants. The Queen cannot be serious, one guard muttered. A human, standing as her consort? He looks weak, unsure. How can he protect her? The other guard snorted. It is a test. That must be it. She wants to see how long he lasts before breaking. When he fails, she will prove that humans are not fit to stand beside us. Arun's chest tightened. He slipped away before they noticed him, but the words echoed in his mind. He felt the truth in them. He was weak compared to the towering Vera warriors. He was unsure, even in his own heart. Perhaps the queen had chosen him only to make a point, not because she truly saw value in him. That evening, when the queen invited him to dine with her, he sat in silence for a long time. The hall was quiet, lit by soft blue flames that floated in the air. Finally, he gathered his courage to speak. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "may I ask you something?" The queen looked at him with steady eyes. "You may." "Why me?" Arun asked. His hands trembled, but he kept his voice steady. "I am not a leader, not a warrior. I do not know your ways. My people did not send me to stand at your side. I am only a mechanic. Why did you choose me?" For a moment, the queen said nothing. She placed her cup down slowly, then folded her hands on the table. "When you gave me that flower," she said, "you did not see me as a throne, or as a ruler to be feared. You saw me as someone who could accept a gift. No council member, no warrior, no envoy has ever done that. They bow, they flatter, they offer jewels or power. None of them dare to treat me as you did." Arun shook his head. "But I did not think. It was just instinct." "Exactly," the queen said. Her voice softened slightly, though it still carried strength. "Instinct can reveal more truth than words prepared in advance. You did not come to me with a plan. You came with honesty. That is what I value." Her words gave him a little comfort, but doubt still stirred inside him. He lowered his eyes. "What if I fail? What if I cannot meet the expectations of your people?" The queen leaned back in her chair. "Then you will face that failure with the same honesty you showed when you gave me the flower. I do not ask you to be what you are not. I ask you only to be yourself." Arun sat in silence, her words sinking deep into his thoughts. Yet even as he tried to believe them, the fear remained. The council did not trust him. The guards doubted him. Even the humans who had traveled with him looked at him as though he had stolen something from them. Later that night, standing on the palace balcony, Arun looked out at the glowing city below. Towers of silver stone stretched toward the stars, bridges of light connecting them in graceful arcs. The Vera world was beautiful, but it was not his own. He felt like a stranger who had wandered into a story too large for him. Still, when he closed his eyes, he remembered the queen's words, "I ask you only to be yourself." Perhaps that was enough. Perhaps not. Arun did not know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. His life was no longer simple, and his doubts would either break him or make him stronger. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet part of him wondered if the flower he had given the queen had not only changed his life, but hers as well. The queen's choice of Arun as her consort spread quickly across the palace and into the city beyond. Whispers filled every corridor. Some spoke with curiosity, others with doubt, and many with open disapproval. The council in particular grew restless. They had accepted the queen's word in public, but in private, their voices rose with concern. One evening, as Arun walked with the queen through a long hall carved with stars, a group of council members stepped forward. They bowed deeply, but their eyes were sharp. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "we respect your will. But your decision has shaken the trust of many. This human has not been tested. He has not proven himself. How can your people look to him with respect if he has done nothing to earn it?" The queen studied them with her calm gaze. "And what would you have me do?" she asked. Another council member spoke. "Let him face a trial. A challenge that will test his courage and wisdom. If he succeeds, your choice will stand beyond question. If he fails, then the truth will be clear for all to see." The queen's eyes moved to Arun. She did not speak for him. Instead, she gave him a chance to answer. Arun's heart pounded. The idea of a trial filled him with fear, but he knew this was not something he could avoid. If he refused, it would shame both him and the queen. Slowly, he nodded. I will face whatever test you give. The queen's lips curved into the faintest smile. She placed her hand gently on his arm. Then let it be so. The next morning, Arun was brought to the chamber of shifting walls, a place spoken of with respect even among the Vaira. It was not a battlefield but a trial of mind and spirit. The chamber was a vast hall, its walls alive with moving patterns of light. Doors appeared and vanished, floors shifted beneath the feet, and paths twisted without warning. Many warriors had faced the chamber. Some succeeded with strength. Others failed and were forced to admit defeat. Arun stood at the entrance, feeling the eyes of the council, the guards, and even the queen upon him. His stomach turned, but he clenched his fists and stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. The chamber came alive. Walls shifted, blocking his path. A glowing doorway appeared far ahead, then vanished as the walls turned again. The floor trembled, tilting beneath his steps. For a moment, panic gripped him. He was no soldier. He had no weapon, no training. But then he remembered something: machines. Back on Earth, he often worked in engine rooms where pipes twisted in every direction, where the smallest mistake could mean disaster. In those places, he had learned patience. He had learned to watch, to listen, to wait for the right moment. Arun took a slow breath and began to move carefully. Instead of rushing toward the first glowing door, he watched how the walls shifted. He noticed patterns in their movement. They did not change at random, there was rhythm, like the turning of gears. He stepped forward when the path opened, waited when it closed, and slowly began to understand the chamber's rhythm. Sweat rolled down his forehead, but his focus grew sharper with each step. At one point, the floor split, leaving a wide gap between two platforms. Arun's heart leapt. A warrior might have leapt across, but Arun knew he would fall. Instead, he searched the walls and noticed small ridges that appeared and disappeared. He waited for the right moment, then crossed carefully, using the ridges like steps. His progress was slow, but steady. Outside, the council watched from crystal screens that showed his movements. Some frowned, unimpressed by his lack of speed. Others leaned forward, surprised at his careful choices. The queen watched silently, her eyes never leaving him. Finally, after what felt like hours, Arun reached the last section. A series of walls closed quickly, one after another, leaving only a narrow gap that opened for a brief moment. His breath came fast. He could not think long. He studied the rhythm, counted the beats, then dashed forward at the right second. The wall slammed shut behind him, but he slipped through just in time. Before him stood the final doorway, glowing bright. He stepped through, and the chamber went still. The door opened, and Arun walked back into the hall where everyone waited. His clothes were damp with sweat, his steps heavy, but his eyes held steady. The council fell silent. They had expected failure, yet here he stood. Not fast, not strong, but determined and patient. The queen rose from her seat. She walked toward him, her cloak trailing behind. When she stood before him, she spoke so all could hear. You faced the chamber not with brute force, but with patience and thought. You showed that strength comes in many forms. Today, you have proven yourself. The hall filled with murmurs. Some still doubted, but many nodded in reluctant respect. The queen lifted his arm high, declaring, "This human is worthy to stand at my side." Arun's chest swelled with both relief and disbelief. He had done it. He had not let fear break him. For the first time since stepping on this world, he felt a spark of belonging. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Trials would come again, in many forms. Yet as he looked at the queen's proud gaze, he felt a small flame of courage burn within him. After the trial of the chamber, Arun noticed a change in how people looked at him. The guards no longer watched him with open suspicion, though many still whispered among themselves. The council had grown quieter, speaking less openly against him, though he could feel their doubt had not fully faded. Even the human envoys had softened a little, though they kept their distance. But the queen herself was different. She seemed more at ease when he stood beside her. She no longer looked at him as though she were testing him, but as though she were curious to know more. And Arun, though still nervous, began to see her not only as a ruler, but as a person who carried a heavy weight every day. Their talks grew longer. At first, they were simple questions. The queen asked about Earth, about the oceans, the forests, the way humans built their homes. Arun answered in plain words, sometimes using small stories from his life. He spoke of his mother's garden, of the small town where he grew up, of the smell of rain on metal rooftops. The queen listened carefully, her sharp eyes softening when he described things that were ordinary to him but strange and new to her. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, the queen stopped near a tall silver tree whose leaves glowed in the night. She touched the bark lightly, then looked at him. On your world, you said people plant flowers for beauty. Why do they do this? What is gained by it? She asked. Arun smiled faintly. Not everything must give something in return. Sometimes beauty itself is enough. A flower can make a person smile after a long day. It can remind them that life is more than work and duty. The queen studied him for a moment. Our people value strength above all else. Beauty is admired, but it is not placed above survival. Yet when you speak of it, I begin to wonder if we have forgotten something. Arun hesitated, then said, maybe strength and beauty can exist together. One does not erase the other. For a moment, silence rested between them. Then the queen nodded. Perhaps you are right. In the days that followed, Arun also learned more about her. She had been crowned at a young age after the loss of her father in battle. Since then, she had ruled with steady strength, never allowing her people to doubt her. She spoke often of her duty, but rarely of herself. One night, in the quiet of her private hall, Arun asked, do you ever grow tired of it? Carrying so much on your shoulders. The queen looked at the crystal flames burning along the walls. A ruler does not have the luxury of tiredness. If I falter, the empire falters. If I show weakness, the rivals of our people will strike. But you are still human. Arun stopped himself, then corrected. I mean, you are still a person. You have feelings like anyone else. Her eyes turned to him, sharp yet thoughtful. Few would dare say that to me. I am not few, Arun replied quietly. The queen studied him for a long moment before speaking again. And that is why I keep you near. Arun felt warmth spread through him at her words, though he also felt the weight of them. He realized she trusted him in ways she did not trust even her council. It was both an honor and a responsibility he had never expected to carry. Their bond grew not in grand moments but in small ones. Sometimes they walked together without speaking, the silence comfortable rather than heavy. Sometimes she asked him to taste dishes from the royal kitchens, curious to know how a human judged the flavors of Vera food. Once, she even laughed softly at a clumsy joke he made, a sound that surprised both of them. The people of the palace began to notice. The guards, who once doubted him, now saluted more firmly when he passed. Servants bowed more deeply, though some still looked at him with wide, curious eyes. The council, though not fully convinced, began to speak less against him in public. Still, Arun knew respect was a fragile thing. One mistake could undo it all. At night, when he was alone in his chamber, he thought of the path he walked. He had never asked for this life. He had never imagined standing beside a queen on a world far from Earth. And yet, each day he spent with her made him feel the bond between them grow stronger. He also began to think of the future. Could he truly belong here? Could a human mechanic ever live as the consort of a queen? The questions pressed on him, but he found himself unwilling to step away. Something inside him told him that his place, at least for now, was beside her. One evening, as the stars shone bright above the palace, the queen stood with him on the balcony. The wind carried the scent of strange flowers from the gardens below. She looked out at her city, her people, her empire stretching beyond the horizon. Then she turned to him. "You have given me more than a flower, Arun," she said. "You have given me another way to see the world. And for that, I am grateful." Arun felt the weight of her words, and for the first time since he had arrived on Vera, he no longer doubted that he had something to offer. Peace inside the palace lasted only a short while. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, the queen was called into her war hall. Arun followed, unsure of what was happening. The air in the chamber was tense. Generals and council members stood around a large glowing map that showed the stars of the empire. Red lines stretched across it, pressing close to the Vera borders. A general stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, we have received word that the Karen Empire is preparing to strike. Their fleets gather near our outer worlds. They wait only for the signal to invade." The queen's eyes narrowed. "The Karen have tested us before, but never with such force. They believe us weak." The council member who had often spoken against Arun added quickly, "And now they will believe it even more. They hear that their great queen has chosen a fragile human as her consort. They will see it as weakness." The queen's gaze silenced him. Still, Arun could feel the weight of the words. He knew many thought the same. Plans were drawn on the glowing map. Generals spoke of large battles, fleets clashing in open space, armies meeting face to face. Arun stood back at first, listening. He had no place among warriors. Yet the more he heard, the more uneasy he felt. The Vera plans were strong, but they were also predictable. Big armies, strong weapons, direct strikes. Arun remembered something from his own world, lessons learned not from war, but from survival. Humans, weaker in body, had often survived by thinking differently, by using surprise and cleverness where strength alone was not enough. When the queen noticed his silence, she spoke. "Arun, you have listened closely. What do you see?" Every eye turned to him. His chest tightened, but he forced himself to answer. "I see courage in your plans, but also danger. The Karen expect you to fight them directly. They are ready for that. But what if you do not fight where they expect? What if you strike in smaller ways, cutting their supply lines, leading them into traps, forcing them to fight on ground where they are weak?" Some generals frowned. One of them growled, "These are not the ways of warriors. We face the enemy head on. That is our honor." Arun shook his head. "Honor is important, but so is victory. If you fight where they are strong, many will fall. If you fight where they are unprepared, your people will live." The council began to argue, voices rising. But the queen raised her hand. Silence returned. She looked at Arun, then at the map. "Explain more." Arun stepped closer. His hands trembled, but he pointed at the glowing lines. "The Karen fleets gather here. They need fuel and supplies. If small Vera ships strike here, at their supply lines, their fleets will weaken before the main battle begins. And if your warriors guide them into the nebula here, where sensors fail, their numbers will not matter as much. You know these paths." "They do not." The generals exchanged uncertain looks. None wanted to admit the human might have a point, but none could deny the logic. The queen studied the map in silence. At last, she spoke. "We will combine strength with cunning. The fleets will still face the enemy, but smaller groups will strike, as Arun has said. Let the Karen learn that Vera are not only strong, but also wise. The hall filled with nods, some reluctant, some respectful. Arun stepped back, his heart still racing. He had spoken, and the queen had listened. For the first time, he felt he had truly given something of value. Days later, the plan was put into motion. Reports flowed in from the edges of the empire. Vera raiding ships struck fast, disappearing before the Karen could respond. Supply lines were cut, fuel stations destroyed, communications disrupted. The Karen fleets grew restless, slower, less prepared. When the main battle finally came, the Vera forces met the enemy with fierce strength. But this time, the Karen were already weakened. Their formations broke under the weight of hunger, confusion, and surprise attacks. The nebula swallowed their ships, and Vera fighters picked them off one by one. In the war hall, the glowing map shifted from red to blue. Cheers rose from the generals. The council, though still proud, now looked at Arun with less doubt. The queen turned to him. Her eyes held something rare, approval mixed with gratitude. You have given my people more than advice. You have given them victory. Arun lowered his head, unsure how to respond. He felt both relief and fear. Relief that his ideas had worked. Fear that more would be expected of him now. He had not planned to be a strategist, yet here he stood, treated as if he belonged among warriors and rulers. That night, as the city celebrated the victory, Arun stood on the palace balcony once more. The sky was filled with glowing lights, signals of joy from the people below. The queen joined him, her cloak brushing softly against the floor. You have shown my people another kind of strength, she said. One they did not expect. You are no longer only my consort. You are now a voice my people will hear. Arun looked at the stars, his heart heavy with wonder. He was still the same man who had fixed machines on a small ship. But now, he was also something more. A human who had changed the course of an empire, all because of a flower. The victory over the Karen Empire had brought a rare calm to the Vera world. Arun walked beside the queen through the palace gardens, where glowing plants swayed gently in the wind. The air was filled with the scent of silver flowers and the distant hum of the city below. For the first time, the humans and Vera citizens celebrated together, not as strangers or allies, but as people who had survived a great threat. The queen held the small crystal stand that contained the flower Arun had first given her. Its petals still glowed softly, a reminder of a simple act that had changed everything. She paused near a fountain, the water sparkling like liquid crystal, and looked at him. You brought this flower to me, she said. I accepted it not because it was rare, but because it was honest. It reminded me that even a ruler can appreciate simplicity. Your small act has become a symbol for many. Arun nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. I never imagined it would matter so much. I only wanted to show respect. The queen smiled, faint but genuine. Respect is powerful, especially when it is offered without fear. Your people see it, my people see it, and now the Karen see it as well. Strength is not only in weapons or armies. It is also in honesty and courage. The citizens of Vera had begun to notice Arun's presence. Children peeked from behind columns, curious about the human who had stood beside the queen. Servants whispered as he passed, and even the council members, who had once doubted him, nodded in acknowledgement. Arun realized that respect earned in action could be stronger than respect demanded by title. Later, the queen called a gathering in the grand hall. Warriors, council members, and citizens alike filled the space. Arun stood at her side, still unsure of what he could say, but ready to be present. The queen lifted the crystal stand with the flower, holding it high for everyone to see. This flower, she said, was given to me by a human who showed courage, honesty, and respect. It reminds us that the smallest gestures can carry the greatest meaning. Let it be a symbol of unity between our peoples, proof that trust and kindness can bridge even the largest differences. The crowd fell silent, then slowly erupted in applause. Some clapped for Arun, some for the Queen, and some simply for the idea that hope could be found in unexpected places. Arun felt a warmth in his chest. He had never imagined a small flower could bring so much meaning to an entire empire. After the gathering, the Queen led him to the balcony that overlooked the city. The lights of Vera glimmered like a sea of stars, and the people below celebrated their survival and unity. She turned to Arun, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "You have stood by me when others doubted," she said. "You have shown wisdom beyond your years and courage beyond what your body might suggest. You are my consort, not because of title, but because of the person you are." Arun swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. "I am honored," he said quietly. "I will do my best to be worthy." The Queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your best has already brought us victory and hope. Now, we face the future together." The future, Arun realized, was no longer something to fear. It was something to build, alongside a queen who had seen his heart, and a people who had learned to respect his voice. He looked at the flower again, its glow reflecting the city lights, and understood that this simple symbol would always remind him of where it began. In the following weeks, Arun continued to learn about Vera culture, their history, and their ways of leadership. He spoke with council members, offering advice in moments when he saw opportunity. He observed warriors as they trained and sometimes suggested small tactics that improved their efficiency. Though he was still human, his perspective brought a new approach to the empire's planning. The Queen noticed his quiet influence. One evening, she said, "You have changed not only how our people see humans, but also how I see the world. Strength is not only what we hold in our hands. It is also what we hold in our hearts." Arun smiled, realizing that he had found more than respect. He had found trust, friendship, and a purpose he could never have imagined. Standing beside the Queen, he no longer felt like an outsider. He was part of something larger than himself, yet still valued for the person he had always been. And so, the flower remained in the palace, preserved in crystal. Its glow reminded everyone who saw it that even the smallest gesture of kindness could change the course of history. It became a symbol of unity, courage, and the bridge between two worlds. Arun stood at the Queen's side on many occasions after that, his presence a quiet reminder that even a human, from a distant world, could make a difference. Together, they ruled with strength, wisdom, and honesty, inspiring both humans and Vera to see that the bonds of respect and courage were stronger than any weapon, taller than any throne, and brighter than any star. The galaxy took notice of this bond. And every time someone asked why the human had been chosen, the Queen simply smiled and held up the small glowing flower, letting it speak for itself.